Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees sweep the St. Louis Cardinals, and it's actually the Yankees' first back-to-back series win since late May. So obviously, the Yankees have been struggling for a while now, but I had not realized that they had not won back-to-back series in that long. I mean, we're almost talking not quite 3 months, but not that far away from it either. And at that point, they had actually won 7 straight series, and then they lost to the Dodgers. And since then, have not won 2 series in a row. So thought that was significant here. And look, part of the Yankees schedule the rest of the way, not all of it, but part of it is against teams that really aren't great. And the Cardinals, they're not bad, but certainly in watching the series, and I felt this way going in, this is not a Cardinal team that really, at this point, has playoff aspirations. I mean, yeah, mathematically, they're not that far out of the last wild card spot, but um, they didn't play great baseball. Like the Yankees, they made their fair share of mistakes in this series, and against a better team, could have eaten that. It could have cost them, but against a Cardinal team that doesn't have the best pitching, there's injuries as well, especially in the lineup. I'd say, um, Yankees were able to get the job done and sweep this series. There was some comeback ability as well, which I like. More so early in the game type of comebacks, but in game three, also late as well, too. Um, so a lot to like there. But as far as the standings go now, look, I mean, the Yankees, as far as the division, it's still tough. I mean, they're 5 back on the loss out of the Blue Jays. Really make that 6 because the Blue Jays have the tiebreaker on them. So it's essentially, I'd call it the Yankees are 6 out. And to me, the only realistic chance that I think that the Yankees has is if they sweep the Blue Jays at home, which that will not be easy. So it's still something that I, of course, want to happen and hope to happen. But realistically, I still feel as if that's not close enough to where I'd want it to be, but it's also not impossible. Where they're really making strides and progress is in the wild card race. Now, as far as what was below them, the Guardians got swept by the Braves. So the Yankees are now 3 up on the loss side of the Guardians. And it got close. The Yankees never quite relinquished that last spot in the playoffs. It got close. Not to say it won't get close again, but this was, I mean, to gain 3 games is, over the weekends as much as it could have been. You got to feel good about that. But they're a lot closer as well, to the Red Sox, to the Mariners. And, as of recording this, the Yankees are tied on the loss side with the Red Sox. Red Sox have one more win. And with the Mariners, it's probably going to be the same as well. Right now, the Mariners are losing late to the Mets in the World Series Classic in Williamsport. So if that result holds, the Mariners and Red Sox will both be 68 and 57, and the Yankees will be 67 and 57. So it's right there, is the point. And the Yankees have the tiebreaker over the Mariners, and the Yankees have 7 games left with the Red Sox. So those head-to-head matchups will go a long way in determining that. And as I've said, I feel as if there is a lot of value in finishing with that highest wildcard spot and having that best of 3 wildcard series be played at Yankee Stadium. It's really a theme across the board. Like, there's a difference between playing at home compared to the road. And I know that generally that's the thought, but I feel like the stats really show it more now. I mean, at least in a lot of these good teams, the difference between home and road record is pretty drastic. I don't recall it being that much of a thing. So again, something to think about down the road. But going back to this series between the Yankees and Cardinals, let's just start from the top as we do. Um, and they get a pretty solid pitching performance. Really, out of the 3 starters, this was the best one they got. Not that he was anything amazing, but Luis Heel picks up his first win on the season in what was his 3rd start. Not good against the Marlins, better against the Astros. And then here, didn't have his dominant stuff, but got a lot of double play balls to get him out of some jams. And he gets the win, goes to 1-1, 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So, it's a good sign that he wasn't his sharpest, but yet was able to come out of it with a pretty good stat line. For the Cardinals, on the bump was Andre Palante, who struggled early, kind of was able to to settle down a little bit. He loses to go to 6-10, 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, and 8 strikeouts. So not a great outing for Palante. And that was something that I had said kind of going into the series, that looking at the Cardinals starting pitching, it wasn't great. And that pretty much played itself out here. Now let's talk lineup. As far as the lineup went, actually pretty consistent throughout the series. So Stanton was out for all 3 games. Now, he would pinch hit in game 3. Now, it's a couple things here. We know that Stanton was likely to not play too much because of the fact of the Cardinals' field dimensions. But also, it did come out that I think Stanton was having a little bit of a tough recovery after playing those 3 straight at home, which is very unfortunate, but sadly not surprising. Sounds like he'll be okay. The thing too is I don't know how close Judge is to playing right field. Like, they're making it seem like it's gonna. I mean, it's going to happen at some point, I believe, but will it happen in these next 2 Tampa games? I don't know. So it's a question to me: is Judge's ability to play the right field, and Stanton now as well. But hopefully in due time, both of them, more so Judge, will be able to play the outfield, because it just makes things a lot easier. So we didn't see much of Stanton. Hope he's okay, and he did have a nice pinch hit appearance in game 3, which we'll talk about. Um, on the flip side of that, Jose Caballero actually started all 3 games and was really, really, really productive in many, many ways in all 3 games. Now, he started in games 1 and 2 and actually started at short in game 3. So Anthony Volpe, who had started 46 straight games um, for the Yanks, really, could use a breather. We've said that a long time. And part of getting Caballero is it allows for that to happen. And in this case, Caballero got the start at short. Volpe would come in later to see the game as a pinch runner for Stanton. Um, so also Jason Dominguez, he played all 3 games as he didn't start the 3 games at Yankee Stadium against the Twins. Ben Rice, of course, played all 3 games, 2 of them at catcher, meaning that Austin Wells got 1 game behind the plate. JC Escar at this point, like he's got the last roster spot among the hitters, but he doesn't have much of a role as current. And what I've been asking for, Cody Bellinger starts at first base in game 1. And that was something that I was hoping that would happen. I think that is your best lineup against righties, includes Bellinger at first and Dominguez in left, and then you make defensive maneuvering, getting Goldschmidt in the game, moving Bellinger to the outfield, and so on and so forth. But I think that is my favorite reverse righty lineup. That said as well, luckily, Paul Goldschmidt, he would actually come in for defensive purposes in the first game, and he would start in game 3 and get 3 hits too. So Goldschmidt not only returning, but looking good doing so. And, I think it was important for him to come back. And it had to have meant something coming back to St. Louis, who he spent the last 6 seasons on, won the National League MVP in 2022. And so hopefully Goldschmidt, I don't know if this right knee issue is necessarily past him, but hopefully it's not something that we're talking about and monitoring too much. But we'll see. Good signs that the results were there in game 3. I think those are the main points that I want to hit on as far as just the ins and outs of the lineup in these 3 games. If anything comes to mind, I'll certainly mention it along the way here. But Yankees jump out to the early lead. And there were some, as we'll talk about, mainly in game 2, but there were some really mean offensive contributors. I mean, I guess I'll just say it right off the top. Ben Rice being the big one of this series, and he ends up with 7 RBIs in game 2, which matches a career high, because he did it last year in that crazy game where he hit like 3 home runs against the Red Sox. But here, second and third no out after a Rice double, Aaron Judge RBI ground out. I thought Judge, it got a little bit better this series. I mean, not so much in game 1, honestly, but game 2 he homers. I think Judge, he's slowly getting there. I don't think that he's back to the point that he wants to be, but I'll say that this series was maybe a step in the right direction for Judge as far as how he looks at the plate. But Judge gets an RBI ground out, and then Jazz Chisholm Jr., who's really, really struggled a lot lately, hits a home run. 21st homer of the year, makes it 3-0. I feel like with Jazz in general, it's just a little bit too much home run or nothing. But at times, we've also seen the full package. And the good thing with Jazz is the speed's always there, and steals were on full display in this series. Jazz had 1 in this game. Caballero, I think, might have had 4 steals in this series. So they were taking advantage of that, and that was good to see. So 3-0 off the Jazz homer there. Then let's go to the top of the third. Yankees score another, uh, only one more run, actually. The Yankees held on. This had, to me, all the makings of a loss for the Yanks, but they were able to hold on. But they get a fourth run in the third, a Chisholm walk and steal. And then he ends up on third after a wild pitch, 2 out, RBI single Jason Dominguez to make it 4-0. So Dominguez had a pretty solid series at the dish. Makes it 4-0 Yanks. Heel does a really nice job for a while and then runs into a little bit of trouble. Actually got into some trouble in the fifth, but was able to get out of that unscathed. But then in the sixth, not as lucky. 1 out double Lars Nootbaar, and then an RBI double for Mason Wynn makes it 4-1, and that would be all for Luis Heel. Mark Leiter Jr. comes on, does walk Alec Burleson to start, but then gets Ivan Herrera grounded to double play. So Leiter Jr. gets out of that gem there. Score holds at 4-1. A situation in the seventh off of Ryan Fernandez where there was an opportunity. Caballero walk, steals second, Grisham walk, first and second, no out. But then Rice strikes out looking. Caballero goes to third on a throwing error by Ryan Fernandez. Just kind of miscommunication between him and I believe maybe the second baseman or shortstop. But Aaron Judge is unable to get the run in. A shallow fly to right does not score Caballero. And then Bellinger pops out. Cody Bellinger, who ends up with a couple of key at-bats in game three that delivered for the Yankees. Like, long story short, Cody had been cool. And apparently he might have been sick. He didn't play game two, and I guess he was dealing with an illness. And game one, just his swing is off right now. He'll be fine. But, besides some home runs, I feel like the batting average is probably taking a bit of a dip and just the productivity of the at-bat. Bottom of the seventh rolls around, and it's Camilo Doval, who has really not been good as a Yankee. And that was accentuated very much so in games 1 and 3, especially game 1. He's erratic as could be. And it's bad to the point where, to me, there is a wide gap after Weaver and Bednar from the right-hand side, right? I'm not going to include Tim Hill. I like Tim Hill a lot, like in terms of what he does versus lefties, but keeping it to the traditional righties, there's a big gap between after Weaver and Bednar. There is. Camilo Doval, for me, he's in that Devin Williams tier. He's in that Mark Leiter Jr. tier. Wherever you want to throw Yuri De Los Santos, there as well. Not saying Doval can't get there, but let's be fair, right? We're going to criticize Devin Williams, who's actually been decent in lower leverage spots, but Doval has not been good, and I don't trust him right now. 1-out walk Jordan Walker, steals second, then a Thomas to Jay-Z strikeout, but then Pedro Paz, 1-2 pitch hit by pitch. That cannot happen right there. Like Doval was on his way to, hey, a walk, but he almost struck out. Like he looked pretty good at it. That's the frustrating thing. It all goes to shit pretty quickly for him, leading to a Victor Scott 2-out RBI double in the right field corner, make it 4-2. And Doval was lucky it wasn't 4-3. If Pedro Paz had any speed, he would have scored, but it stays 4-2 right there. And then they bring out Luke Weaver, and unfortunately, it's a wild pitch by Weaver, but really should have been a pass ball on Ben Rice, to be fair. Ben Rice had a pass ball earlier. I like what I've seen from Ben Rice behind the plate, but there have been mistakes as well. And that's why in this game, you saw Austin Wells come in for defensive purposes in the ninth. I wouldn't have even had a problem with it being the seventh. And I like Rice way, 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 way more at the offensively. But I acknowledge that Rice is a little bit of a risk there on the defensive side, and it cost them here. So even though Paz didn't score on the double by Scott, ends up scoring on the wild pitch by Weaver. However, Weaver strikes out Nootbaar in a big situation right there. Bottom of the eighth, and at this point, defensive switch is made where Bellinger goes from first to left. Goldschmidt comes into first, and Jason Dominguez is out of the game. Luke Weaver is able to go there was a little bit of 2-out trouble. Single by Herrera. Garrett Hampson pinch runs, and Weaver and Goldschmidt have some miscommunication, and Weaver throws it away. Allows Hampson to go to second, but Nolan Gorman strikes out. So Weaver with a couple of big strikeouts to end the seventh and the eighth. Luke Weaver's been so good lately, and that would actually continue in game 3 as well. And Luke Weaver is a former Cardinal. Top of the ninth, Yankees have a chance to tack on first and second, no out. And Trent Grisham was just insistent on bunting. Whether that came from the bench or him, not what I wanted in that situation. And they knew it. And he did it on 2-0. It was just, I totally disagree with that. And they got McMahon out at third easily. And then from there, Rice strikes out. Judge does walk, and then Bellinger pop out. So again, the Yankees were on a score mission 3 for 17 on the game. And so here comes David Bednar in for the ninth, and Austin Wells in as a defensive replacement. Bednar gets a couple of called strikeouts to the first two batters, and then Yohel Pazzo pinch hits for Paez, a line shot by Pazzo, and a really nice catch by Bellinger in left. I don't think Dominguez makes that catch. And so David Bednar, combined between the Pirates and Yankees, gets his 19th save of the season. Yankees hold on for the 4-3 win. Give Weaver and Bednar a lot of credit. And Leonard Jr. a little bit as well. Mostly good pitching except for Duvall in this game. Yankees score early, and that was enough for them to get the 4-3 win over the Cardinals. Game two has a lot going on in it in game two. And that would be a matchup between Max Fried and Sonny Gray. Max Fried's struggles very, very much continue, although he does get the win. One of the luckier wins you'll find, winning going to 13-5, 5 innings, 8 hits, 7 runs, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. So for the last 8 starts, I think Fried's ERA is like 6.8. It needs to get better. And it's to the point now where when Fried pitches, you just don't feel great about it. And he will have a very big start on his hands against the Red Sox for his next outing. So no better time to turn it around then. For the Cardinals, it was former Yankee Sonny Gray, who basically said, hold my beer. But Sonny Gray was not good in this one. He loses to it 11-6, 5 innings, 9 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts for Sonny Gray, given a 5-2 lead in the third, and just gave it up, the next couple of innings. So a bad job by Sonny Gray, who has struggled lately for the Cardinals. Some big offensive performances. Trent Grisham with 4 hits in this game, including a walk, so gets on 5 times. Ben Rice, 7 RBIs on 3 hits. So the top dude are doing its thing. And Jose Caballero with a couple of hits, 3 runs, a couple of steals at the bottom. So Caballero, what is he real quick? What his Yankee numbers are? I got to think that they're pretty solid at this point. In not a big sample size. Yeah, pretty good. 6 for 18, 79 OPS with 5 steals in 10 games as a Yankee. So pretty good for Caballero, who really, unfortunately, makes that really bad mistake in Miami in right field defensively. But besides that, has done a nice job. So Yanks get on the board first off of Sonny Gray in the first inning. And it would be, again, Grisham and Rice getting on, leading to an RBI double by Aaron Judge. Not a good strikeout by Chisholm Jr. with 2nd and 3rd, no out. But then Dominguez RBI single to make it 2-0. And then Volpe with a bad strikeout. And then McMahon strikes out looking. So they kind of had Gray on the ropes, and there was a couple of big hits in there, but also a lot of strikeouts. Bottom of the first with 1 out, really bad play by Dominguez in left, where Alec Burleson gets a triple. Dominguez, it's just rough out there, and I think he's caught in between, where that might have been a play where maybe he should have held up. Could have Cody Bellinger have made the play? Maybe. I'm not sure, but I know it wouldn't have been a triple. And so not great. Not a great break for Fried. And look, the defense wasn't great behind Fried, to be fair, but Fried also did himself no favors. RBI single Ivan Herrera to make it 2-1 right after that. And the bottom of the second, things get really bad for Fried. Leadoff walk Nolan Gorman, and the walks have been a problem for Fried lately. Although that would be Fried's only walk of the night. Paez 1-out single. Victor Scott, RBI single, makes it 2-2. And then Mason Wynn with a 3-run homer, his 9th homer of the year, makes it 5-2 Cardinals. But then the Yankees do fight back. In the third, Aaron Judge hits his 39th homer of the year to right center field. Victor Scott actually gets hurt on the play, trying to rob the home run. Scott would actually go on the IL after the game. Then top of the fourth, it starts out with a 1-out bunt single for Caballero, just making things happen. Then Trent Grisham with a single makes it 1st and 3rd, no out right there. And then Ben Rice, 3-run homer, 18th homer of the year for Rice, makes it 6-5. And Sonny Gray, he would be done after 5 innings. So let's go to the top of the 6th. New pitcher on, Kyle Leahy. And the Yankees got to him. Single Austin Wells, single Jose Caballero, single Trent Grisham, and it leads to a bases clearing 3-run double for Ben Rice to make it 9-5. Then bottom of the 6th, double Jordan Walker, and a 2-run homer for Nolan Gorman. So Fried looked as if he was settling down, right? 3 scoreless innings in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But Fried's night ends on a Gorman 2-run shot. 7 runs allowed by Fried. Devin Williams comes on and strikes out the side. It's the Jay-Z, Paez, and Hampson. So Devin Williams in this sort of 5th and 6th inning type role has done the job. And I would keep him in those situations, right? Keep him from late game scenarios. And it seems as if he's able to get it done more effectively. So keeps it at 9-7. Then Ryan McMahon with his first homer as a Yankee, finally. And McMahon's done a lot of good things, but he hadn't homered yet, and he gets it there. 17th homer of the year combined with the Rockies, 10-7 Yanks. Then eventually, Ben Rice is at it again. He gets an RBI single, makes it 11-7. You get a sacrifice fly by Jazz Chisholm Jr. to make it 12-7 Yankees. So opening up a little bit there. Yuri De Los Santos, who had struggled in his last inning versus the Twins, I like him more in this role. Up 5, 2 innings of work, scoreless. Keeps it 12-7. The unfortunate bit for this game is that Mark Leonard Jr. struggled in the ninth to the point where David Bednar came in. 1-out homer for Pedro Pajes. His ninth homer of the year makes it 12-8. Then with 2 out, infield single Mason Wynn. Technically another infield single by Alec Burleson, and David Bednar would have to come in a save situation, and he would get Ivan Herrera to pop out to Austin Wells. So 3 pitches thrown by Bednar, 20th save of the season for Bednar, and the Yankees win 12-8 in a very eventful game. So they win the series, but can they get the sweep? They didn't get the sweep against the Twins. They would get the sweep against the Cardinals. And it would be Will Warren on the mound for the Yanks. It was a bit of a struggle for Will Warren. He wasn't horrible, and the earned run average of this game actually ends up not being that bad, but only goes 4 2/3 innings, allows 6 hits, 3 runs, only 1 earned, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts for Will Warren. So I'll give him credit here. Like, he's, where he blew up in a couple of games. Besides that, he's really kept the Yankees in just about every other game. So there's been consistency there, which is nice. But at the same time, was a bit of a struggle. The ump was also just straight bad. Nick Lentz was just all over the place, and he was typically hitter friendly. For the Cardinals, it was Miles Michaelis going 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 5 walks, and 1 strikeout. A pretty ugly outing for Michaelis, and was kind of fortunate to only give up 3 runs. And in this one, the Yankees would again be the ones to take the lead. It wouldn't come until the 4th inning. And it would be a 1-out RBI, not RBI double for Paul Goldschmidt. This was a game where the Yankees scored 8 runs without any home runs, which is the most runs they scored this year without getting a home run. So good. I know the Cardinals defense didn't help matters, but still, Yankees able to manufacture runs, which is nice to see. Bad base running by Jazz, where he lost track of the ball because he was trying to steal. He didn't know where the ball was, and so he should have scored on this. Luckily, no harm, no foul, as Jason Dominguez gets an infield RBI single to make it 1-0. Ryan McMahon RBI single makes it 2-0, and Jose Caballero RBI single makes it 3-0. So a nice stretch there. And then Nick Lentz with a terrible job where Trent Grisham's called out on strikes on an inside pitch. Should have made it 3-2, could have changed the whole complexion of the inning. And it actually got Tanner Swanson, the Yankee coach, I believe assistant, I think he's maybe the catching coach, I think is Tanner Swanson, ejected by third base Vic Carapazza, and then Ben Rice flies out. So could have been a lot more. And then bottom of the 4th rolls around, and Ryan McMahon, who's normally sure-handed, does a little bit of struggles lately. Ivan Herrera reaches on a fielding error, and that's never a good omen. 1-out walk for Jordan Walker, and Will Warren is almost able to get out of it. But he hangs an 0-2 pitch that was out of the zone, but hung too much to Thomas Saggese. And Cody Bellinger with not the greatest route in right field. It goes over his head for a 2-run double, make it 3-2. That was a big moment. So right there, I'm thinking, okay, we got ourselves a game for sure. Let's go to the bottom of the 5th. Jazz tries to make a diving stop and play to get Lars Nootbaar out. Unfortunately, he makes a bad throw to Goldschmidt and allows Nootbaar to go to second. So Chisholm probably had a little bit more time to maybe set and get a proper throw, but rushed it a little bit. Goldschmidt unable to get it. Goes by the catcher Rice. And then with 1 out, after a Mason Wynn strikeout, they could have went to Tim Hill, who was warming up for a long time. He warmed up as early as the 4th inning and didn't come in until the 7th. They decide to keep Will Warren in, and Alec Burleson gets an RBI single. So a bit of a questionable decision. But ultimately, Devin Williams would get the last out of the inning. Williams walks Nolan Gorman, but strikes out Jordan Walker. So a lot of strikeouts lately for Devin Williams, and keeps the score at 3-3. Let's now go to the bottom of the 6th. Camilo Doval comes in, and first batter he faces, Yohel Pazzo gets a solo shot, 5th homer of the year. So Doval's struggles very much continue. He does get the final 3 outs of the 6th. Let's go to the top of the 7th. Trent Grisham walks, and within that, Oliver Marmol, the head coach or the manager for the Cardinals, gets ejected by home plate on Nick Lentz. So this is just frustration boiled over the whole game, because honestly, the walk to Grisham was actually properly called. Um, you know what it was? Oh, no. You know what it was? It was the 2-1 pitch should have been a strike. Actually, sorry, the 1-1 and 2-1 pitch should have been a strike. So just the ump was terrible for both sides. Ben Rice strikes out looking, and then they bring on a new pitcher, Riley O'Brien, to replace Kyle Leahy, who had been in. Aaron Judge single makes it first and third, one out, and then Cody Bellinger is able to get the sac fly to tie it up at 4 in the 7th. So a big sac fly by Cody, who again has not been great lately. OPS is now under 800, but that was big there. Bottom of the 7th, it's a combination of Duvall and 2 outs by Tim Hill to keep it at 4-4. Bottom of the 8th, a combination of Tim Hill and Luke Weaver to end that 8th inning. 1 out by Hill, 2 out by Weaver. And we go to the top of the 9th. Jojo Romero, the lefty, comes on. Jose Caballero hitting for himself, which is interesting. They could have maybe pinch hit for him. He reaches on a throwing error by second baseman Thomas Saggese. A high chop, and I think Caballero's speed was a threat to Saggese, who makes a bad throw. And not only does he not get the out, but Caballero goes to second. So it ends up kind of working badly on both counts there for the Cardinals. And then to make matters worse, with Grisham up, a pass ball by Yohel Pozo, to make it runner on third, no out. However, Trent Grisham against the lefty grounds out to first. So the game stays tied. Then Stan pinch hits to the lefty Rice. And Stan puts together a pretty nice at bat. And on pitch 7, walks. Makes it first and third. They pinch run Volpe for Stanton. And then after 2 balls to Judge, they intentionally walk Judge. And so it's based on a 1 out. Cody Bellinger hits a ground ball to the right side, and it goes through. It's ruled an error by second baseman Thomas Saggese after the dive by Burles to the first baseman was unsuccessful. Even if Saggese fields this cleanly, it was going to be a run scored by the Yankees. Maybe they would have gotten an out. But to me, that could have been ruled a hit. But either way, not great defense either, and a horrible one. Saggese had a really rough inning. Scores 2 runs in that play to make it 6-4. You then get an RBI ground out by Jazz to make it 7-4. Later on, with a new pitcher in, Paul Goldschmidt, against his former squad, gets an RBI double, so 2 doubles in the day for Goldschmidt, and a lot of success versus righties, which is good to see. Makes it 8-4 Yankees. And then Luke Weaver, after a lot of defensive maneuverings, Dominguez comes out of the game, most notably. Weaver, who had pitched the 8th, they had Bednar warming up, so Bednar would have pitched 3 straight days, but with the big lead, they stick with Weaver, and he actually gets the win and gets the final 5 outs of the game. So Luke Weaver's been great lately. The Yankees get the sweep. They win 8-4 in St. Louis. So now it sets up a rare 2-game set in Tampa. And the pitching matchups are as follows. Carlos Rodon versus Shane Baz, which is definitely advantage Yankees. Baz has not been good lately. And Rodon has had success against Tampa. Pitched really well in Tampa in April, going 6 shutout innings. And then, I guess that was his only outing against Tampa this year, interestingly enough, it looks like. But either way, that was a good outing there. Rodon did pitch well his last start, and Shane Baz has struggled lately. I believe Shane Baz has faced the Yankees this year, did really poorly at home against the Yankees back in April. And that was it for Baz. But again, on paper, advantage Yankees, and this will be at Steinbrenner Field, which the Yankees are accustomed to, it being their stadium technically. And then game 2, Cam Schlittler against Drew Rasmussen. Now that one is advantage Tampa, but again, Cam Schlittler hasn't been pretty, but Schlittler has kept the Yankees in most games. So give him credit there. But Rasmussen, he has been really good lately for Tampa. And in his outing versus the Yankees recently, got the win at Yankee Stadium and pitched pretty well in 5 innings. Wasn't amazing, but was solid. And so this one I give advantage Rays. Rasmussen also pitched against the Yankees earlier in the year, and did a pretty fine job there in a loss against Rodon, actually. He only allowed 1 run, but that was enough for the Yankees to win. So the Yankees have actually done pretty well against the Rays this year. 2-game set here in Tampa. Rays, they're 7 out of the loss side of the Yankees. I mean, the playoffs for them are a long shot, but they're a pesky team, and the Yankees do struggle in division. And this will be before a 4-game set against the Red Sox. So the Yankees have to make sure to not look past Tampa with the big Boston series coming up after. But the Yankees have already won the road trip, the 5-game road trip. They've already won the first 3. They sweep the Cardinals. They get their first road sweep since June against Kansas City, and their first back-to-back series wins since late May. So a sweep at St. Louis, as they will now head to Tampa for a 2-game set against the Rays.